So it was just like any other day back in 1985. My mom's best friend was visiting our house that day, and me and my brother, we were out in the front yard playing. It's like any other day. And the next thing you know, my mom's best friend come outside and told us, she said, I think something is wrong with your mother. She just went in the bedroom and laid down, and she complained about having a headache. Now, prior to that, they were in the kitchen having a great conversation, laughs and giggles. This was her childhood friend. So things began to get real serious. She contacted our next door neighbors, the beloved, late, beautiful, loving, and kind spirits of Mr. and Mrs. McElroy. And then my father soon arrived, and then we noticed that something was seriously wrong, and so we had to call an ambulance for medical attention because now my mom was becoming unresponsive. When the ambulance first got there, they took her to a hospital that was in a local area, and they was kind of shucking and jiving, and my dad kind of stayed on top of the hospital staff to see that they was BSing and they wasn't really trying to get to the bottom of the situation that my mother was dealing with. They actually was going to release her and send her back home. My dad was like, no, we got to take her somewhere to get a second opinion. So we went out to, I believe that's Olivet, a hospital in Olivet, won't say the name. And they immediately noticed and recognized that my mother was suffering and just had an aneurysm. My mother went into emergency medical surgery on the spot. Now, not only did she go through that surgery, but my mother would end up being in the hospital almost for a whole year. And in the result of her having an aneurysm, she lost a lot of her speech. She lost a lot of her hair due to the incisions that were cut and made on her head. And she was partially paralyzed on the right side of her body. It was a hard time for me and my brother. At that time, it was just me and Jay. Alex wasn't born yet. And it was a lot to process. It was a lot to digest. I no longer had the mother that I had growing up, and it really bothered me. I was subconsciously, I was angry. I was angry towards my mother. But there were certain things that was cause and effect that caused her to have that aneurysm. A lot of stress, a lot of heartbreak, things I was doing in the school. My mom she wasn't happy about it. And it got to the point where I was attending a Christian private school, and they eventually expelled me. And that might have been the camel that broke my mother's back, because that might have been the situation that broke the camel's back, because that broke my mother's heart all the way into that situation of having an aneurysm, which is why they say stress is one of the number one silent killers in people. But during the process of not having a mother, with her being in a hospital, my father stepped in. My father made a vow to my mother on the day that they got married, that he would never leave that woman. He would be by her side for better, for worse, sickness and health. And he stood his ground. While at the same time, when we were examining our mother going through physical changes, she looked different. She talked different. It was very striking and intriguing for us to see our mother in this condition from what we have always known. And people always say, you talk fast. Well, I got it from my mother. My mother was a fast talker before she had her aneurysm. But the trying times was for my father. He still had to lock down the household. He still had to get us to school. He still had to make dinner and breakfast, even though he blowed half his ass off trying to make breakfast one day. Anybody know my father? He's a high yellow dude. But I remember sitting in that front room and I seen them flames go up in the kitchen. And he looked just the same as Daffy Duck with his beak blown off. But my father was tried. Women was like, hey, why be with her? She's never going to be the same again. People was encouraging my father to just give up hope. Just let it ride. And most men, a lot of men walk away. And the same as women do in challenging situations when it comes to marriages and commitment. My father never left. He never walked away. My father never got depressed. He never got into the streets. He didn't start seeing anybody on the side. He went to work every day diligently. Sometimes we had to stay with relatives because the schedule got hectic. My dad got off work and went to see my mother every single day. Me and my brothers, we were down in the city with our grandmother at the time, and with family members on my father's side of the family as well. But the one thing that I learned is my greatest asset was a father who showed me the proper example of how to value and love a woman properly, how to value and love his family and his children properly. See, that's something you can't really put in an individual. You either got it or you don't. It's just like I'm a coach. I have certain athletes I have to strictly just train and kind of bludgeon them and give them repetitions to help them hone their craft. And then there's some kids that walk in that gym, like I obviously used to say, practice, that can go in the game and excel with no challenges. But I look back on that time and I really admire and salute my father for being a man, for staying true to his commitment. We didn't see my father break down, but I'm pretty sure he had a lot of nights thinking about his wife would never be the same again. I'm pretty sure my father had nights where he cried and toiled. We would have never known. The bills were still paid. We had clothes on our back. We were well fed, and he was still pushing it with our sports. And at the same time, balancing all these responsibilities while maintaining a situation with his beloved wife and spouse, my mother, in the hospital. That's the greatest asset that I know I have. And growing up as a kid, I thought everybody had a father figure in the home. This is what I assumed. So the point of me making this particular episode is understanding the most powerful value assets you have in your life. And you know what that is? A father that is dedicated to loving his wife and his children. A man that is dedicated to loving the woman that he has children by if they're not married. That's a rare commodity. It's almost like dinosaurs. But let me tell you this, the biggest myth is that black men are bad fathers. The biggest myth out there is that black men are bad husbands. That's complete cap. But I realized, looking upon a lot of my friends' situations in other people's household, how men just easily walked away because the woman gained weight. She changed her hairstyle. She wanted to go natural. She wanted to introduce some things that she thought would make the family and the household better, and the man just couldn't accept it. I see a lot of men walk away and do wrong on their women for lesser reasons and lesser situations. So I had to realize, and looking back on that time, because you could go through something and not realize the valuable asset you have standing right there in your life. And I come home to say this. I recently been going through some challenges myself. People always profess how much they care about you, how much they value, how much they love you. But when you hit a certain situation or you hit a rock bottom, pay close attention to who back away. Pay close attention to who walk away. And guess what? It might hurt. It might disappoint. But don't let it hurt you. Don't let it disappoint you. You let the trash take itself out. See, there are certain people who are destined and called to be in your life. And there are certain people who are only there for a time in the season to enjoy whatever benefits they get from you or whatever times that y'all have and whatever y'all purpose was. Everything doesn't always stay the same. Some things don't last forever, and that's okay. But pay close attention to those who stand in your darkest moments, in your darkest hours. And right then and there, you're going to know who is your most valuable asset in your life. Has nothing to do with money. Has nothing to do with status. It has everything to do with value. Life is short. We all are losing family members left and right. People getting bad news every single day. And it's almost like in hyperspeed right now. So I value people who understand the value of loving somebody correctly. Standing in there with a commitment, because it's not the easiest thing to do. And my dad has taken on a lot on his shoulders, a lot of burdens. Loving people that don't love him back. I never see that man angry, complaining. I never see that man feel regret because he did an act of kindness or helped people out. Never seen that. And that's the greatest example that I have in my life. Even though my dad calls me an asshole. I think a lot of people might agree with that, but I love my father. And he taught me a lesson. It was the most non-verbal lesson I ever learned from him. And I'm grateful for him. I just told her I was on Fanbase today. We were talking about a group called Understanding Black Fatherhood, which that group is still running right now at 12:23 a.m. in the morning, which started during the daytime. And I told everybody in that group, I always say, my father is the greatest man alive. It was never Michael Jordan, no pun intended. It was never a LeBron James. It was never a movie idol. It was never a musical artist. It was always my father. I didn't fear gangsters in the street more than I feared my father right there in my own home. But my mother is a loving woman, and she loves that man unrelentlessly and non-compromising, because my mother is also my greatest asset in my life. And the story ends in a good light, because she had my fat ass brother in 88. She had A Dot. Dotto. She had him. And he was the biggest of us all. So when people question about, is there a God or is God is real, that's enough proof for me to know that there is. And my mama has successfully maintained a lifestyle. It's been challenging for her. You know, she still slurs with some of her speech, and she's got a lot of her function. But it's not when people are around her. It's when she's in her lonely moments by herself at the store trying to shop, and people are impatient with her. But my mama keeps pushing. My father keeps pushing. And I encourage you to stop and just take a close observation. Who are your greatest assets in your life? Who are the people that's going to stand in there and stay by your side when everything else around you is crumbling and falling? And I say that to say this. In a day and a time where life is so uncertain and the world is going in a much darker place, the one commodity that you have that costs no money are people who value you enough to love you the correct way. Men, do your children look at you and say, my daddy's the greatest man alive? Or do they question your habits? Do they question your thoughts? Do they question your intentions? Do they question that you even love them? And if that's something you have to ask yourself and you don't know for sure, you got work to do. And that's one lesson I had to learn with my own children. Arrogantly in my younger years, I thought I was that guy, all because I was present and doing what I was supposed to do as a father. But there was a lot of things that I missed and I dropped the ball on. And as much as I embrace fatherhood and as much as I advocate for men to be fathers, I don't know if my children look at me as the greatest man alive. I don't think they look at me as anything negative, but have I earned that right in their minds? Well, with a few of them, I know I do, and I have, but I have 7. So, you know, when you have more than a couple of children, you know, things could get sticky. Not all of them are the same. They're their own individuals. And, you know, with that many children, you know, sometimes they tend to click, but it's okay. But the father is the greatest asset that you're going to have in your life. Young ladies, I noticed that most women who grow up with a good father, they don't have a lot of bitterness towards men. They understand a lot of plights that black men go through. And they're understanding, as opposed to some of those who may not. And a lot of y'all have failed y'all daughters because you was not there for them when they were young. So they go seeking that daddy attention, that masculine attention in men, half-ass naked, wanting to draw some type of value just to be acknowledged. And you could have did that right there when they was a little girl to acknowledge them and break them of that desire of wanting to be acknowledged just by a man and having that masculine energy. And I'm not saying it to crucify you and nail you and hang you dry and to beat you down, because I'm for you and we all have to do better. And I'm to be held accountable as well too. I don't have a problem with anybody holding me accountable. But as long as I live, I'm going to always cherish and value my father for as long as I have him. You understand? And seeing that up close and personal, it gets no deeper than that. And shout out to all the men and women who have stood in there with your spouse, with your parents, with your children, somebody that went through a medical emergency that changed them forever and they will never be the same. I want to give you your flowers now, because you don't get them. The days and nights that you might have your own children, you have to get up in the middle of the night and go deal with Big Mama, or go deal with Papa, or go visit him, or deal with a sibling. But you have to look at an individual like that on a whole nother level. And you have to appreciate people that exist like that, because the world and people are decaying. Everybody's selfish. And everybody planning the scapegoat and the escape route to leave a relationship over nothing. Now, I'm not a relationship guru. I'm not married, so you've noticed I don't never speak on marriage. It's something that I desire, but I'll know when it's time, and I'll know when it's her. So I'm not mad and upset about anything that I've gone through. And my evolution has been so great lately. And I've been changing. I wasn't even going to upload an episode this week, but my word is bond. Every Tuesday at 10 p.m. I'm a little late on the ball today. Things have been a little busy, been a little hectic, but nothing bad. As always, I thank you for sitting in with me, for anything that I have to listen and say. You can get this anywhere else, but you chose to come here to get it. I don't know everything, and I will never claim to know everything. And I don't know if I need to know everything. I'm not a know-it-all Negro. But one thing that I do know is the power of value. Value was the boundary that kept my father there. If it was love, he could have just dipped out and went back and start marking boxes to find the next prospect. But it was value. And I say this a lot on my show. Value is more powerful than love. Because if you value somebody, you will love them the correct way. And I appreciate you all. This is the place where we bring it sexy back to the everyday hardworking men and women who impact your life with who impact your life. What I done went blank. This is the place where we bring it sexy back to the everyday men and women who impact your life within close proximity. We want to rise above this madness, which is called black culture. The biggest mistake that you could ever make is to think that you have time. And Fanatics, y'all better deliver my jersey next time a little bit faster. I love it though. It's dope, ain't it? I value you all. Peace.
Equality versus equity. Equality means every child gets a pair of shoes. Equity means every child gets a pair of shoes that fit. That means every school district has to meet every student's individual needs.
I'm Jerry O'Green with the Black Student Advocate. We advocate for black employees and black students within the K-12 school districts. We hold school districts accountable to make sure that black students and employees are in a fair and equitable workplace.